Hey guys, welcome back to Kiwi Classics and Customs. Well, today we're actually gonna put a floor into Caspa. Now, don't be fooled by Project Swiss cheese here to my left. The floor pan's here, Caspa's right over there. Now, before you get bored and go, I've seen 100 floor pans put in Mustangs. This is a little different. As you can see, I've already been cutting on this thing. We start off with a nice big, expensive one-piece floor pan. Gonna cut this side off, cut these off. So we're turning it into a 5-piece floor pan. Now there's a method to the madness, so bear with me. You're gonna see why this was actually the best way to install it. It seems like it's more work, like I've made more work for myself. Trust me, I don't like making more work for myself, but this was actually the easiest way to do it. So I'm going to run through that with you, show you the reasons why and how we've actually got it, going to achieve this little exercise. Now a lot of it has to do with the Scots rear suspension, the 4-link in Caspa, which required a different kind of subframe connector. And the subframe, obviously the installation of the subframe connectors impact the floor pan as well and where they're located. And the other little thing that tipped the scales on this was we had to get this into the car. So we're limited on places to get it in. It's too big to go in through the doors. The subframe connectors are in and installed, so it can't come up from underneath. You can squeeze these in through the front windshield. The front windshield is about 2 inches too narrow, or narrower than the total width of the floor pan. But you can squeeze it up and like basically bend it a little bit through the center of the tunnel here, squeeze it up, slide it in, drop it down. But there was so much stuff to work around in this car. The rear wheel tubs are bigger than stock, 2 inches bigger than stock. So these little areas here, this I've cut off here. That's where the rear tub goes. Now it's 2 inches wider, so this was not going to just drop in. So this needs to be trimmed. So there's a lot of stuff to trim around. The subframe connectors need to be trimmed around. And doing that on a one-piece floor pan, trying to get it in, mark it, get it out of the car again, cut it, hopefully as close as you can, back in, trim it a bit, back out. There was going to be a lot of messing around, making it very hard to get. The sheer size makes it hard to get in and out of the car. Great if you're working on a convertible, you just drop it in from the top, but it's a fastback. So let me reposition the camera and I'll show you what I'm raving on about. We are in Caspa. Now, as you can see, the subframe connectors are here. We've got the 4-link going on here. Now these subframe connectors are run right, these are the factory pieces here, the front rail extensions. We've run the subframe connector up inside there and right through inside the rear rail, so we had something to pick the 4-link, attach it to, something solid to attach it to. So to achieve that, we've had to bring the subframe connectors up through where the floor wants to be. The floor normally sits like on this little edge here, sits there, runs through. So this has to be cut up through the floor. Now the floor comes through, does start to drop down, and it kind of intersects with the subframe connector about here. So we needed to have a groove cut about that long for the floor to drop down and go over, which left us, that was going to make the floor panel quite I've done it that way before on convertibles, but when you're trying to squeeze it into a car like this, it's a little more difficult. And I thought, well, what I decided to do to make it easy to get in was basically cut the side off of the floor pan so that this will drop in here like so. And you can see where the level of the floor pan intersects here and drops down like it's coming down through here. Having that as a smaller piece made this very easy to trim this to the right width. And then what I've done is the extra work I've created is this little cut here and then up here. We're going to have to join it here. Now we're going to run plug welds through here anyway to attach it here. This is like 4 inches. And the main center section of the floor is going to drop down in the middle it'll butt up here, and we can still, you know, we'll have to fully weld it and do the plug welds. So, you know, we've got, you know, 18 inches, 2 feet of extra welding to do that way. But I've saved a ton of time by being able to like keep taking this out, trim a little bit, putting it back in, trim a little bit, put it back in, to make it all sit nice. And none of this joint here, obviously there's going to be one on the other side, will not be seen from underneath. Like, it's not like you're making a patchwork quilt. Cutting it through here, you know, is going to hide that joint. Obviously you'll see it from the inside, but there's carpets in it, you know. But if anyone's ever got it on a rack or showing the car and there's mirrors underneath, you won't see like a patchwork. You won't lose any strength because of where it's joined. And it's made the floor pan like, what, 15 inches narrower, so it'll just slide on through the window, through this front windshield opening, piece of cake. And also makes it a little bit easier to handle, a little bit smaller, a little bit lighter. And we can trim, we've got to trim this side, we've got to carry this little cut here across and down and join it into there. That'll drop down. Now this little piece that's on the back of the floor pan and fits around the torque box here, this is the factory torque box, this fits around here. We'll get rid of that. Now because of the big tubs here, that's not the right shape. That's hitting there, and as you can see, there's a big gap here. This needs to be trimmed out. And that's, you know, that takes a little bit of time to trim this nice and get it up into the tub where it looks factory. So again, I put a little cut through here, and that is going to line up once it's actually in place. That little cut there will be on top of this flange, to the top of the rear rail here. So that'll be butt welded there and plug welded. So again, in my book, it's a no harm, no foul, and it gives me a piece that I can slowly trim here and make that a perfect fit around here. Now you can imagine trying to get the one-piece floor pan in, trying to kind of mark it, guesstimate where you want to cut it, you know, take it all the way out again, trim it, or get it halfway out so you can reach in here with tin snips. It was just going to be a physically hard work and time consuming, you know, and time is money. So now I've got a nice, really easy little piece to handle. I can kind of make a quick, you know, guess with a Sharpie here is what I got to trim, take a bit off. Yeah, that's not enough, a little bit more, and get it perfect. And just drop that in, weld the perimeter, and it'll be perfect. You know, like honestly, unless you've got the carpet up and you know, the sound deadening out of it, you're never going to know that's happened. And it's, again, not a compromise on strength. So now, obviously I haven't trimmed this piece yet. I'm waiting for that. We're probably going to have to modify these tubs a little further with the size wheel we're jamming in. Even with the 2-inch bigger tubs, we're still getting tight down here on droop. So I think I'm going to have to stretch this out here and bring this out in a little bit. I'm not sure whether we'll be able to beat it into submission, or might have to do a little cut up here to just roll this out a little bit. But as it sits a little bit jacked up, the tyre's touching this tub, which obviously that won't fly. So I'm going to work on these tubs once we get the rear suspension like properly in and finalised, and then I can work on those, get them to the shape that I need, and then trim that at a later date, which works for me. So we don't need to worry about that piece right now. This piece I've done. Now how I came to cut this, you've got quite a bunch of reference points here. There's the back of the floor pan sits in here against the torque box. So I kind of use that as my like datum line, reference point, and measured forward from here to the length of the rail here. So I had a distance here, which I could mark on this floor pan. I measured from this rocker here to this rail extension to these flanges, so I could measure that, mark that out, have a cut where it was right in the middle of that flange, and then measured across to the subframe connector, you know, there and there, basically described a straight line and cut it. Now, not quite as simple. Well, it is as simple as all that, but it does take a bit of measuring. You know, there was several trips from here to the floor pan and back to the floor pan, and then double check, because you don't want to cut up a $600-700 floor pan in the wrong place. Now it is metal and you weld it back together, but the idea of this is to try and save some time, save the customer some money, and you know, having to redo it because you screwed up is not a good way to save time or money. So yeah, there was quite a bit of checking and rechecking, but that piece is fitting in there nicely, and so that's kind of ready to weld in. Now the temptation is to get this welded in. It's like, oh, we're making progress, but I want to get the other side done, and then I want to do the middle section of the floor pan, because it is a bit harder to work over here. You know, you got to reach a bit more. There's, you know, like getting back to here. With this out of the way, you know, I can stand here, sit on the rocker, whatever I need to do, and work on that center section. So much as I want to get that welded in, I'm going to leave it for now. We'll get the other side trimmed the same, and then do the center section. So again, reposition the camera. We'll do the slow-mo stuff, or the super fast I should say, and you know, we'll go through measuring the other side, getting it cut, lots of sparks, and then it'll be a matter of like sliding that. Once I've done, I could have done it just doing one side, but after having, yeah, it would have been narrow enough to come through the window, but having trimmed this one side off and how actually quick it was to do, it's like I'm going to do that on the other side, because I firmly believe that the time it's going to take me to weld from there to there on that join is a lot less than trying to manhandle it in and out of the car and cut this as a groove through the floor pan. So yeah, so I'm going to do it that way. We'll have a nice narrow center section to slip in, and then it'll have a floor. It's just as simple as that. All right, guys, let me move the camera again, and we'll get cracking. All right, here's our piece, our 1 of 5. So that's going to sit about there. Now it's lining up nicely here with the flange on the rail extension. Now we got too much here, but you know, I knew that. I marked the line basically down the middle of this subframe connector. So we got about an inch to trim off. So what I did on the other side was like held this down. Might use a clamp actually. I need to get it pretty much where we want it, where we believe we want it. Clamp that there. And then I'm just going to use the scribe, reach underneath here and basically run along like that on the inside of this subframe connector. And that'll give us a real line to trim to get this to drop down in the little gap we got. To bring that across to About there. All right. Now, you can kind of see where maybe you can see, but you can see where I've scribed it here. Based off the other side, we need to trim it, leave about that piece there intact and just take out through here, down to there. So, I'm going to grab my cut-off wheel. What did I do with it? Did I leave it over there? Yes, I did. Hang on, guys. I'm coming back. I'm coming back. I know the screen's gone blank, but I'm coming back. So yeah, here we start a little bit of kind of the whittling process. So this throws a ton of sparks. So it's noisy as all get out. So hopefully I won't deafen you guys. Right, let's see how close that got us. Now, I'm being a little more aggressive on the cuts than I was on the other side, because I've learnt from the other side. So, yeah. And what's kind of quite handy is that, let me get rid of this mask, is that this becomes a wedge shaped, like it's wider here than it is here. So if you put it too far forward, and then slide it back in, you can see where your tight spots are, where you need to trim a little bit. So yeah, so this now starts the process, and we'll probably break out the tin snips and just snip away at it till we get it exactly where I want it. So it's kind of important to sneak up on it. Don't get overconfident and then find yourself short. Okay, we're getting there. Slowly it's kind of creeping back. But yeah, basically that's how it works. You just keep snipping away at it, grinding at it, cutting at it, until you get the wedge, this wedge shape that's here, so it'll slide back and it'll all touch. So I'm going to keep working at it. I'll speed it up as much as I can on the film, because it's not the most exciting sport in the world. Where are we touching there? And there. Each time you take a little bit off, it just sneaks on back a little further. Break out the cut-off wheel, a little bit of this, just clean it up. Getting close. See it sitting down now on the flange here. Where are we tight? Just there a little bit. It's pretty good, pretty good. Whew, it is noisy, that thing though, that cutter. It's sitting up on this edge here. It's making it sit up here just a little. So I'm just going to cut that through the back. There's my little stop. I need my green ones. Damn it. That is pretty darn close. A little tight spot there. The snugger you can make this thing, the easier it gets trying to actually, when you're welding it in and fill in the gaps. If there's less gap you got, the easier it is to weld. And that's pretty good. That's pretty good set there. I'm happy with that. That all just needs persuading down in there a little bit. And yeah, so we've got two sides. Now we need a middle. So let the games begin. We've got to get the big piece in there and see what happens. So yeah, let's do that. Okay, we've had it in once. It was a little too wide where I trimmed it. To get my measurements, I just measured across the subframe connectors, much like I did between the side and the subframe connector. I just measured across the two subframe connectors, put that measurement across the floor, and trimmed. It took, basically we needed about an inch off the sides where, because I cut down the, where I cut it originally was like down the middle of the subframe connector, which is a 2-inch section. So it needed about an inch off each side. So that kind of measured up right. We were a little bit wide, trimmed a bit off, and that was close. We needed a little bit more trimming on this front edge. So I'm going to do that quickly, punch some holes in it. We'll throw this back in for the last time. Pretty good, pretty good. All right. Okay. We'll clip this out. Just leave it running. We'll now do a bit of a chat. Okay, so there it is. It's all in. Kind of looks pretty good actually. I'm pretty happy with that. Everything's lining up. We got gaps where we need it. We got everything punched, ready to start welding in. Everything's sitting where pretty much where it's meant to, and the sections of the floor are lining up nice. So yeah, we've still got holes to punch in these sections, but that's easy, they just lift out. And then yeah, we can get them all lined up, weld it back in. And that looks pretty mean actually. I like the look of the subframe connectors coming right up through the floor. So yeah, once we get that all welded in, which that's the next task, there's also the convertible seat base to go in, which is different from the regular seat bases in that it comes up and over the tunnel. So we'll show that little section as well. But that is about it for today. We're going to go home and we'll carry this video on in the morning. All right, so we'll be back in just a second, but it'll be tomorrow. Next day, got a bunch of clamps in place, got a few Tech screws in place, and ready to start burning it in. So I'm going to put this camera on the super slow-mo, or super speed I should say, and burn it in. All right, hang on. The floor pan is in, done. Every last little bit of welding. Obviously not these two little back corners around the tubs. We're going to do that once we get the tubs finalised. But yeah, everything we're working on here is all done. It's welded up both sides of these subframe connectors. So it is basically a one-piece floor pan again. Pretty happy with how this has all come up. It looks good. Now we're ready for the one-piece seat base. The convertible seat base. So this is it here. We can't sneak this in. Now, this is a nice little piece that the aftermarket has supplied us, in that this is the convertible design of, oops, get my jacket out of there, of seat base. Goes about there. A little bit of trimming here and there, obviously. In that it comes up and over the tunnel, the drive shaft tunnel. So it's sitting up on the subframe connectors at the moment. We've just got to mark those and give those a little nick, a little recess to drop down and around. What the aftermarket has done, which is quite neat, normally the convertibles have an inner rocker which comes in about 2 inches and down, so it's kind of like a double rocker, which is a big strength improvement on the convertible. And I've done that on a few fastbacks and coupes, but with this one having the integrated subframe connectors, adding the convertible rocker is not that, is kind of overkill. So what the aftermarket has done is made this seat base. This wouldn't normally fit. It would be 2 inches short of the rocker. It wouldn't make it to the rocker. So they stamped it out, making it the full width of the fastback and the coupe. So you can drop it straight into a coupe or fastback and burn it in, and it ties. It really does tie this side of the car to that side of the car. And when we add this to everything else we've done here, this thing's going to be super strong. So now it sits about there. I'm going to sneak it back a little bit. We're just going to probably gain maybe towards an inch of leg room, because unless you're like 5'8", there's not a lot of room in a Mustang. So we'll sneak it back a little bit because we don't have to worry about tying into the subframe, the frame rail extensions, because they're already tied in to the subframe connector. So we don't have to worry about the location as much. We can sneak it back a little bit. So then it's just a matter of marking our little notches for the subframe connector, and we'll bring that up. It's going to be a notch around there. Same with this side. About there, straight up. And then this thing will sit down, we won't have this big gap here, and that'll sit down quite nicely. We've got to take a little notch out of here. It's just kind of clashing with the floor pan here. So we'll take a little tiny notch out of there, and same on the other side. That's something and nothing. So let me go and do that. Then we've got, another 60 or so plug welds to do on this, and we can call it done, which that'd be nice. All right, back in a moment. Alrighty. Let's see how this fits now. Like a rubber mallet. Rubber hammer, whatever you want to call it. Always a pretty handy tool to have around. Well, that's actually fitting pretty good. All flush here, flush across the back here. A minimal gap here on the front edge. But yeah, All right, what I'm going to do now is just mark the front and back edges so we can clean off the e-coat, get everything prepped under here, get a bit of primer and stuff on the welds underneath here where we're never going to be able to access again. So let me just mark these. That's going to tell me where I need to grind. This is very rough, guy. I will give it a little measure. Make sure we're square before we actually start burning it in. But this is a good indicator. All right. I'm going to go and get this out and go and get my grinder. Back in a minute. All right, got the e-coat cleaned off. That's pretty straightforward. Now what I am going to do, because this seam here is going to be locked underneath the seat base forever, potentially, I'm going to bang a bit of seam sealer along here, just while we can. Now this is just regular automotive seam sealer. And you just squeeze it on. Really anywhere you've got an over. This needs to go all the way around, but I'm just trying to get this done so we can lock down this seat base. And just kind of smooth it in a little bit. Normally I'd use a little bit of wax and grease remover, or white spirit, some kind of a solvent like that, just to pretty this in a little bit. But honestly, humans are never going to lay eyes on it again, I don't think. At least I hope not. I'm going to run a little bit around the edge of the subframe connector as well. Just in case there's any, I mean, in theory there shouldn't be, and theory is a great thing, but in case there's any little porous bits, anything I've missed, never pays to assume that you've done it perfectly. I don't think it does anyway. We're all human. And any little porous bits, any little holes that might be there, that's where your rust is going to start. And I will go around and finish all the rest of them. Now we'll put a little bit of weld through primer over the bare metal bits, like over this, and we'll be ready to put the seat in. Now if any of you were wondering why I hadn't been putting any weld through primer on, I have, it's just you can't see it. This is what I use. I mean, this is just a universal spray bottle, but I use a product called Gem Rust Converter and Metal Prep, and that, one, it converts rust, and two, it doubles as a weld through primer, but it goes on clear so you can't see it. So you know, I'm always very meticulous about using this stuff, and you either spray it onto like a little shop towel or just direct onto your metal and then just wipe it around. Now, so yeah, what I like about this is you don't get lots of overspray, which you do get with the rattle can weld through primers. And the beauty is you can just wipe it over everything you've just been working on like that, just wherever you need it, just bang it on. and that stops it rusting while you're, you know, busy doing whatever other projects you have on that particular car. Like these welds are now not gonna just go rusty in the next few days when it's sat there. Now I've already done that side, so but you know, it's only, there's a limit to how exciting it is watching me spray metal prep onto metal, you know. So yeah, that's what I do. You haven't necessarily seen me do it, but I have been doing it all around the perimeter of the floor pans, and it's a product that I found works really well. It's good to work with, and as I say, it kind of doubles up and protects all the rest of the work you've already done, because wherever you weld, it's going to want to rust again pretty quickly if you're not like jumping straight on it and getting an epoxy primer or something on it. This acts as a great rust preventative and weld through primer. So right, let's get this seat base, get this party started, or finished really. Okay, here we go. Now, this particular piece, you can tell by the colour, the silver colour is a weld through primer that's already on it when it arrives, so we don't have to worry about that. It's all sitting down there pretty nice. I'm going to grab a tape measure, get the welder fired up, and we'll start burning. Let's get measuring. We just measure straight to the leading edge of the floor pan. We've got 18 3/4. It doesn't want to kind of go in particularly, you know, on much of an angle. There's not the wiggle room there to actually get it in on an angle. I mean, yeah, right where I just dropped it randomly, that's perfectly even both sides. As I say, that's about 3/4 of an inch further back than the original factory location, and yeah, that looks like it's going to fit pretty nice right there. Now this piece you do want to start in the middle and work out. You don't want to start at one side and work your way across, because you'll find you've got too much seat base over that side, which is not going to serve you well. Now you've already seen a whole lot of welding on this video, so through the magic of Hollywood we're going to go from this to this in just a split second. In all seriousness though, about 80 plug welds later, it's all welded in, so it's looking good. This kind of stage of this project that's done. We've got the floors in, they're all tied in with the subframe connectors. We've got the seat base. Yeah, nice. This is super heavy gauge, and that all ties the outer rockers to the subframe connectors, you know, to the other side. So it's right across. It helps a tremendous amount with the torsional twisting of the car, which it's going to need. A supercharged Coyote, you know, it's going to want to tweak this old body shell. So yeah, I'm very confident that it's going to be more than strong enough to do the job now. And yeah, now it's on to the rest, which is still quite a bit to do, but that's all right. We'll get there. We'll get there. In the meantime, go and check out the YouTube, my YouTube homepage. Or the Shopify link should be going up tonight for the Super Kev t-shirts, the Kiwi beanies, the Large Marge t-shirts. Good Christmas presents, guys. Even if you are buying them for yourself, you know, hey, someone's got to give you a Christmas present, right? Anyway, yeah. You guys have a good weekend. I'm going to clean up all these hundreds and hundreds of these little discs that we've cut out from everywhere, all the holes we've punched. Get that all cleaned up and have a nice fresh shop to start with on Monday morning. and then it'll be about bourbon o'clock, I reckon. So yeah, you guys have a good weekend, and we'll catch you on the next video. Take care.